This last recording is going to talk about unmatched queries. Unmatched queries allow you to check for orphan records. Orphan records are child records. Remember that in the relationships, let's take a look at the database relationships for pizza orders here. In the relationship, the child is on the many side of this one-to-many relationship. One customer places many orders, but one order is only placed by one customer. This one represents the parent in this relationship, and this is the child. An orphan is a child that has no parent. How could we have orders in our database that don't have any parents? Well, if we don't have the referential integrity turned on, that's very possible to do. You could type in a customer name. If we didn't have lookups, a lot of the validation, a lot of the lookups are preventing that from happening, so it's very difficult here. Occasionally the other is also true, that I want to check the parent to make sure that they have orders. Give me a list of customers who don't have orders because they're in my database for a reason, but they haven't ordered recently, or they haven't ordered at all, and why are they in there? And so we can analyze those. So let's take a look at that and create one of those queries. These are used a little less often, but again, I use a wizard because there's an unmatched query wizard. And what I want to know is find the customers that don't have any orders. And notice you can use queries for these, but typically this is done with tables. Next thing you have to make sure is it accesses correctly link these tables. Because the relationships are defined in that relationships window, this should already be correct. Have a customer ID linked to a customer ID. If that's not correct, then click the fields, click the field, and click these connection arrows, and it'll create this. But this has to be defined. One of the examples you do in the book, it doesn't get defined automatically. But in this case, it's already there, but just check it. And then finally, what do you want to see? For the records in the customer table that don't have any orders, what do you want to see? Show me everything. Maybe not the ID. That's a quick way, by the way, to get all but just a few fields, send them all over, and send one back. This way I can call the customer and say, hey, we got you in our database, you're still interested in receiving our mailings, etc. And we can now get a list. Query customers without orders. And there is one, because in the last recording that I did in 2.6, I wanted to check to see if I could find duplicates. And so I created a second Volcker Gall record. And this Volcker Gall doesn't have any orders. And so this must be the second one that I added. So I probably want to jot down this phone number, go find the other Volcker Gall record, because there should be two of them. And I can find them pretty quickly by searching for Volcker here. Shouldn't be too many of those. Right, there's the other one. Change the phone number, and then I can delete this one because my customers without orders has told me that this one doesn't have any orders, so it's safe to delete. Notice nowadays you can also do this. There's no orders versus the 137 where there are 3 orders, 4 orders. Right. So that's another way to check for records, but what this query allows you to do is not have to go through 5,000 customers individually, click their little plus signs to see if they have orders. So that's found it, and now I can use that, and I can either delete it from here or I could go back to the table and delete it, but in either case I can delete this extra Volcker Gall record so that I don't send extra stuff to that person. What if I wanted to check for orphans? As I mentioned previously, that would be the orders table. Right. But in the orders table, it is very hard to add a record, so let's try it. I'm going to add a new record. Excuse me. And we'll put today's date in here. And who's the customer? Well, if I try to type something in here like Congengus, that's not spelled right, I get yelled at because that item isn't on the list. Because I have used a lookup, it is nearly impossible to enter some data that is not on this list. What I can do, however, is leave it blank. Okay. And this was a large pizza, and that's all we know, and the order total was $15. We'll just leave it at that. That I can do. I can leave them blank. Now my validation, I could add to the validation so that you can't leave it blank. If you've got an order, there has to be a customer. So what happens if we accidentally leave it blank? Then we can use our query wizard to say I need to find an unmatched query from the orders table that do not have customers. And again, are they linked properly? Yes, they are. What fields do you want to see? Make it easy. Everything but the order ID. Order with no customer. Can't be an invalid customer because that can't happen anymore with our referential integrity turned on. So there's that order, and I can then say, oops, I must have missed that, and put in whoever it was and leave the record. Now it's been saved. So the unmatched queries are used a little less often. The find duplicates is much more important, but you can use unmatched to go through the database and find records that are orphaned or parents without children. Those can occasionally come in handy.